Hey, everybody. We're starting this episode a little different because we got pulled off of YouTube for a copyright claim. This episode you're about to listen to was a big one for us. We're joined with very special guest John Trueson, and we were going to bring him up with like cool music and make it a big production, but YouTube pulled it down because we stole the song. I guess Dying is Easy is just this big now to where they're watching us. So, you know, we got some heat on us now, but we'll be okay. I spoke to Joe Rogan. He said just pull it down and re-upload it. So that's why you're hearing my stupid voice right now, and I'm going to cut to the episode in a second. It's going to be a weird transition. He sells it a lot. Like
that's
he's
as
like,
good as I can say.
No!
That's as good. That was everything I had.
Yes, welcome to another episode of the podcast. We have a very special guest in the studio today, John Trueson, first guest ever
in the boardroom,
in person, risking the pandemic, the global pandemic that's happening right now.
And already you guys are making me sad.
Oh,
I gave you number 69. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I feel awful already. So, Trueson is very important to John and I. And I refer to you. I don't know if I refer to you as the Yoda of stand-up comedy, right? Yoda?
Sure.
Yeah, you say that to me a lot.
Who's the other guy that we say? Yoda and Han Solo?
No, just Yoda. I don't know.
No, there's another guy that's
Obi-Wan
like
Kenobi?
There's another guy. Yes, that's
Obi-Wan.
That's the one.
There you go.
I
he was
watched,
cooler. He had a beard.
Yeah.
I watched the first Star Wars. What I don't get about Star Wars. Who's the guy that's the father? He's the father?
Have you seen any of these movies?
The password is preparation.
Darth Vader? Am I thinking of the right guy?
We wrote all this stuff, and then we're on a Star Wars tangent.
No, but
I don't see that written anywhere here.
Who's the?
I don't watch Star Wars.
I'm your father. Who's the guy that says, "Luke, I'm your father"?
Darth Vader.
So Luke's mom had sex with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Why would she have sex with
He
that?
didn't wear the suit.
It wasn't always like that.
Why would she bang him though?
What?
I don't know.
He was probably a very fine-looking young man.
He wasn't always like that.
Leather jacket, maybe, you know. No, he wasn't like that.
When did Darth Vader become that?
I don't know.
I don't watch Star Wars movies. Where are we going with this?
I don't know. I'm nervous. I'm freaking out. You have a water over there. Ask a question, Ziegler.
And now I'm just gonna do that all.
Ask your stupid pasta question that you always bring up on the podcast.
John Trueson is, since I've started comedy, he's the booker of the Governor's Comedy Clubs. And he kind of gave me my opportunity. He's responsible for this.
That's sad on so many levels.
And mine.
And a lot of other people.
Actually, through you got my first hosting weekend talking to Trueson.
Yeah, I did.
You recommended me.
I think you still owe me money on that.
I think I did, yeah.
You recommended me. And that 6 years ago, actually, probably this month, I took your class. I took the Governor's Comedy class.
You go.
I was 24. And when I first started, like that comedy class, it was me, Tui, Neil Rubenstein. I thought I was good.
Was Grillo in that class?
No.
Grillo was not in that class.
No, Grillo's later.
Bill Morales was in that class.
Oh, okay. All right.
I thought I was like good at comedy.
Okay.
And then Trueson was like, well... and totally changed everything that I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I'm horrific at this. I don't know how to do anything.
You weren't horrific. You were inexperienced.
Right.
Which is, that's natural. See, one of the problems with comedy is that people believe that, like, you know, Louis C.K., they just walked out and were tremendous.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication and a lot of honing your craft to get that good. And, you know, nobody just walks out on stage and is brilliant. It doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so people, they, especially audience members, don't give it the credit that it deserves.
Yeah.
I think.
I took the class it's over 11 years. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was over 11 years ago.
I just found your first tape.
I have them on DVD, but I don't have a DVD player.
Oh, okay.
I'm dying to watch them. You found my first?
Yes, I'm gonna digitize it. I'm digitize it. I'll give it to you.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
You know what his big bit was?
11 years ago? I think I know. It was the Changing at Jamaica, right?
No, well, no, but no, that was
Came a
not,
little bit later.
that his killer bit.
You can't tell that bit once you leave Long Island. It's the best bit.
No, his killer bit was he did a physical bit where he did an impression of Bigfoot. You know that Bigfoot tape, that sort of
Like
blurry
Ketchum?
Bigfoot, where the guy kind of looks back.
The Zapruder tape of
The
Bigfoot.
Zapruder Bigfoot tape.
Even in the act out, it's like a slow moving object.
Well, that was perfect. That's the perfect act out for me.
Yep.
Because it's like a grainy 8mm, which is kind of me on stage.
When you took his class, anybody doing comedy that was in your class?
I don't remember anybody in my class. So I'd say no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't
think
think anybody
anybody.
survived.
Since I started at Governor's, I'd say there's of all the people who started, maybe there's like 7 or 8 people who were still doing comedy, who started with me or after me. People actually working in comedy is like, that shows you how hard this is. Like in the 11, 12 years I've been doing this, there's like 7 guys
Yep.
that are doing comedy still.
And you know, it's weird, like in teaching the class, sometimes I'll have people in the class who are tremendously talented, and you can tell they have something original and talented about them, and they do like 1 or 2 class shows, and they're
That's
done.
it.
They disappear. The insane people with no talent stay forever.
Yeah.
I think because the funny normal ones, I think go and have lives.
Yeah.
And I think some of the crazy ones, like they have no, what are they going to do? Just their social life.
Here's what stuck in my mind when I first started, coming to Governors and stuff like that. I took your class. I did the class shows, and then, you show face at the club. You get a couple guest spots here and there, right? You get a 5-minute spot on a Thursday, and I went down. I'm like, I took his class. I feel good. I went down. I did 5 minutes at McGuire's, and I bombed. I didn't get a laugh. I didn't get a laugh for 5 minutes, and then I listened to my setback, and I didn't take a pause. I didn't breathe. I was just flying through my material, and you said something at the bar, and I felt like it was kind of directed towards me.
Get out of the business.
Get out of the business. Quit. You said the only answer is to work harder.
That's always the answer.
And I took it. I was like, oh, I have to get on stage every day now. If I'm doing this, I got to do it every day.
It's the only way it works.
Multiple times.
You can't do this once a week. You just don't get any better.
Right.
Even at a higher level, you still have to go all the time. I mean, I learned when I started going to the city, because I would walk in and I'd see like Nick DiPaolo and Dave Attell and Colin Quinn at like shitty open mics at the clubs, not like, but a club open. And I'd be like, why are they here on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock for 12 people? And I'm like, that's why they who they are. But you were tough on.
Oh yeah.
I'm known for my tact and gentle bearing. I was just thinking that, like, there are people who I've spoken to at the open mics or various shows, and I'm like, how many times do you get up? And they're like, 2 or 3 times a month. And I would say, well, that's just enough to suck forever.
You've told that to me. It's stuck in my head for 12 years.
I do. I'm on stage 30 times a month, and I'm going to suck forever. So think about that drop off.
True.
But speaking of being tough, it was like high school football all over again when I met Trueson. My coach would call me a pussy. Like it was the whole thing.
We've been waiting to tell these truths. We've been doing this podcast since before the pandemic, and we keep saying we got to tell these Trueson stories. And I go, let's get him on and tell him when he's here, because I was an adult. You were at least. I was a grown man. I was 42 and owned a business.
Did you sob? Did I make you sob?
It made me nervous. Yeah. So I would go to the club, and John's the guy there. He's the booker. He's the gatekeeper, and I would walk in. I don't think he said so much as hello to me for like 9 months. I would do the open mic. So I remember the first time, there was always group, I was just doing open mic. So there's always be a lot of people around. And I would just sit quietly. So one day I'm in the green room, and everybody left the green room except me and you. And I was leaning in like you were a hot chick, and I wanted to try to pick. I was like, I'm like, don't say that's stupid. Don't say that. So finally, this is what I came up with. I leaned in and I go, so John, and you weren't looking at me. You were chewing gum and looking the opposite direction. There's nobody else in the green room. And I said, you've been doing comedy a long time? That's what I came up with. Like, you should see the ones I didn't do.
Literally, that's the worst question asked.
And he just went like this. He went, yep, long time. And then got up and made a beeline out of the green room. And I was just sitting there by myself.
You know why? Think about how many crazy assholes have asked him that question.
Well, I didn't get it. Then I was like, what a dick to say hi to me.
At least my first question kind of made sense with him.
Well, tell yours, because this was your first open mic.
Yeah. First open mic, you were hosting it.
Okay.
and I'm panicking. I'm basically vomiting by the bar. That's how nervous I am.
Okay.
I go up to Trueson and I go, hey, hey, is somebody gonna light me? And you went like this. You went, oh, is somebody gonna light me? And then walked away from me. So I never got an answer. So now I'm like, I have to ask other open micers. I'm like, is this what this guy does? Like, I just doesn't like. Is there a light? I don't know.
I was torn because then they came out with a movie a few years after that. A movie called. We ever seen the movie Whiplash with J.K. Simmons, where the kid's a drummer, and J.K. Simmons is like crazy in it, and I'm like, is he crazy or is he teaching him a lesson?
Yeah, yeah. There was so much like Mr. Miyagi stuff going on here.
But you know what?
Karate Kid.
All bullshit aside, if you want to be good at this,
Yeah.
I don't care how much you want something or dream about it. If you don't grind and work and take it serious and have like a plan, it's going to flounder for 4 years and disappear. That's why there's like 7 guys around since I've started, because most of them don't do what we did.
We've talked about this.
Well, they do
before.
it for 5 months.
There's 7 good comedians in the country. We've talked about this 1,000 times. Maybe 6 good comedians in the country.
Well, I always quote that Seinfeld thing where they asked Jerry about when he was around in the 70s.
Right.
It's like, there was like 100 good comics in the country. They're like, now with social media and YouTube and all this other stuff, there's all these. He goes, yeah, there's still only 100 good ones. Because you got to do the work.
Yep.
That was one of my questions. It's like jumping ahead.
Jump ahead. Go ahead. Do
Jumping
it.
ahead, because I think like social media obviously gives people opportunity.
Yeah.
It gives them a stage they couldn't, but do you I think, I'm curious, do you think it's hurt stand up in terms of quality?
Yeah. Well, it's changed the game considerably in that you can do little weird things on social media and end up with a following of people that will come out to see you perform.
Yep.
Now, when they come out to see you perform, if you have the stage presence and the ability to do something, then you can get away with it. And some people do. Some people are very, very, good on stage, very natural on stage. But there are people who have sort of gotten their comeuppance when they actually had to perform for a live audience after doing their little, quick YouTube videos or whatever the heck they were doing.
I just feel like it steals that work ethic.
I hosted for a girl who was Instagram famous.
Yeah.
I think now she has 1 million followers. I think at the time it was like 700,000. She, I was at the clubs, and this is how bad she did. Someone came over to the bar, looked at me, and said, "Are you going back up?" Imagine that. Asking Calcagno, "Are you going back up?" Like to save the show. Well, I have 9 good minutes. I'm going to save the show tonight.
Wow.
I already did it.
I'm always wondering, like, because people always tout social media, and I'm always like, it's ruined. For me, it's like almost ruined stand-up comedy.
It's got its ups and downs. I mean, there are people like, Anthony Rodia does real well with audiences. He's very charismatic.
Yep.
And he kills, and he does a great job.
And he sells.
And he sells, and he did that mostly by building up his social media following. And he has something to back it up. Vic DiBitetto, obviously, was the sort of the groundbreaker there. And that's a guy who punched it out in the trenches for like 30 years.
Guys like that, I'm happy
crazy.
for.
Yeah. I mean, I've known Vic since the 70s. And he was just, just really just slugging it out. And then he got a few viral videos. And it made all the difference in the world for him. So God bless him, man. Ride that wave.
Isn't that the difference, though? Like, he was ready for something like that.
Absolutely.
If I hit tonight, I can't do an hour. I'm not ready to do that.
Well, I had this discussion with Ziegler once when he wanted to know whether he should audition for Last Comic Standing.
It was Last Comics. It was like one of the first seasons of Last
How
Comic
many years were you in?
Less than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was wanted to audition for Last Comic Standing. I said, okay, hypothetically, you win. You win Last Comic Standing. You're the champion. Now you have to go out there and tour the country and back it up and headline shows and have your own TV spots. Can you do it? Do you have the chops to do that? And I was like, no. Then don't do it.
Going to be giving out a lot of guest spots.
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
I guess when you're new, you just think being on television means something, and you don't realize it's exciting for the day, and then it's over.
Being on television is a commercial for your product. If you don't have a product to sell, don't get on TV to promote it.
Yeah,
it's
just an ego thing.
And nowadays, it's almost like nothing matters. Like, oh, this guy was on this show or did this late night spot or HBO spot. Oh, nobody cares. Unless it translates into ticket sales. Nobody cares.
Yep.
You remember, you've been teaching, how long have you been teaching that comedy class? Since you came back to Governors?
Yeah, but way before that, too. So it's got to be probably started 20 years ago.
Wow, I want to ask. I'm so curious, but just
his memory, by the way,
crazy people.
You have he has like a Rain Man memory, so you remember a lot of people. You remember most of those. I'm always like, who is that crazy guy who did there? And you just ramble their name. I'm like, how do you remember that nut job?
It's like American Idol. Like the first 2 episodes, like all the crazy people that I like. Like that's what I want to hear from him. All the crazy nut
who
jobs.
are the William Hungs?
I don't want to care. I don't care about the people that like had big careers and was this guy. I want to hear about the crazy people.
That's most of them, but he remembers. You remember almost every one of them. But does it feel? Somebody who's asked me what I like about comedy. Now that I've been doing it for a little while, I like when I get better. Mm-hmm. But I always like to see like my friends or people who came after me and watch them go from like, oh, you remember you sucked and you used to bomb. Now look at you doing like 30 minutes and it's funny. Like I love to see that.
I love that. I think that's great. I remember Ziegler saying to me, all I want, my dream is to be able to do a 30-minute middle spot.
I wanted to just like open for like a Nick DiPaolo.
That's my dream now.
That's all he aspired to. And now when he bitches and moans, I'm like, you're already doing better than your dream.
Yeah,
so
now I'm headlining and I've never been more bitter.
You can't follow me yet. We do a private show. You can't. We're doing so-and-so restaurant. You can't follow it.
It is true how your goals change.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember my first feature spot. I worked at New York Sport Club, and I quit. And I called you from the car, and I'm like, look, if you have any spots,
hilarious. I
quit my full-time job again. And I was like right at the point, I wasn't featuring yet, but you're like, you want to feature? Like I had 20. I was like, he's like, Jim Brewer got 5 shows this week and he's sold out. And you just went, don't fuck it up. And then you hung the phone up on me.
There's always a little tweak at the end that's like,
Well, I had the whole weekend. Mark Lunder's not there anymore.
Yeah, you don't know the
I know
the abuse that I was getting.
I know
for doing that.
Well, Mark comes into the green room. It's 15 minutes before showtime. I'm pacing. I have my notes. Brewer's in there. I'm afraid to look at him. And Mark's like, Trueson told me he had you this weekend. You're a nice guy. But I was like, he was like telling me the guys he wanted instead of me. And I was like, it's Brewer weekend. I was like, Ziegler? And I'm like, thanks for the pep talk. 8 minutes
We're about to go on. Who hosted, do you know?
It was me and Brian John, but Brewer does such a long set. We both do like 15 minutes. Yeah. It's not like a full feature. And his crowds are hot.
Yeah, and it makes people nervous, but the easiest shows to do are the bigger acts because their audiences is so fired up to be there.
Comedy fans.
Yeah.
And Brewer has a good crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal, is to perform the comedy fans, like not these freaking all these shows that no one. Most of the audience that I perform to, they don't want to be there. That's the majority of my shows.
At least once you start telling jokes.
They usually leave. That was funny on Friday. We do the backyard show on Friday on Long Island, and as soon as I go on stage, Joe DeVito gets up and just goes right in the back. I was like, honestly, I was like, thank God.
You walked him?
Oh, I walked him. I said, hello,
DeVito.
everybody. How you doing? And he just got up and left, which thank God. I don't want people watching my fucking garbage.
Well, Joe's always been he's been the model for me from comic standpoint. Mm-hmm. The 2 people that are most influential, obviously, are you, because you kind of taught me everything I needed to know in comedy. There were very basic guidelines that sound very basic. It's amazed how many crazy people can't follow them.
Yep.
You gave me like 4 guidelines when I started.
That's all you need.
Yeah, I said, I was like my first day in class, and I asked John, I was like, hey, can you make a living doing comedy? He goes, well, you're probably not going to be Jerry Seinfeld or Jim Gaffigan, because even if you're good, it's still very hard to do. Like, a lot of shit's got to go your way for that to happen. He goes, but if you're not, like, don't be crazy.
Yep.
Show up on time, work hard, be nice.
Mm-hmm. Be original.
And he goes, and if you're funny, that's almost like, oh, yeah, and try to be funny. Like, if you can do the other things, you can probably work as a comic.
Mm-hmm.
Best advice John Trueson ever gave me, ever. And this works in every aspect of life. Forget comedy. 2 words.
What?
Shut up.
That was your number 1. We did a top 5 rules of comedy on this one day. Shut up.
We should talk about the top 5 rules of comedy.
We just did. Don't be crazy.
Don't be crazy is good.
Some version of that is the top 5.
Yep. No, shut up is a good one.
Shut up.
Because there's so many people, especially new people, who like come into the green room and just start chattering and it's like, everybody listen. Yeah. Listen to people who are a little bit further along than you, and you'll learn something. Watch, be quiet, be relaxed.
So I am just a sponge when if I'm in a green room with headliners and people that are I'm just
you're always good that way.
I'm observing. That's all I'm doing.
Which is kind of how I met you, because I started using you a lot on shows, but it was because you did a good job.
For very little money.
But plus I can underpay you because you were desperate.
Right. I got to bring all the shit.
You got to bring all the
I
shit.
got to drive you. I have to drive
Definitely
you.
have to, you definitely have to drive. But you,
Well,
you didn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, kid's a pleasure.
What a great podcast partner.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't talk a lot. Let's do a weekly podcast together.
That's when Calcagno, I think, used to think I was kind of more important than I am. Yeah. He did.
That's how new in the business he was.
Yeah, he was so new in the business.
Mm-hmm.
He saw me around Governors. I ran the open mic, and I was friendly with you. And I think he thought I had some. And then he got to know me. Now I can't even get him. He doesn't fucking answer my phone calls. It takes 2 days to get back to me.
Once I started doing what he's doing, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like,
this is not very impressive what I'm doing.
I mean,
so it's like, I'm working, but.
Hey, you tell a money joke and then.
Tell a couple of jokes about money, and I'm out of here. So this is a question. I was telling this to Calcagno before this podcast, because of this pandemic thing, it's almost like our careers were. Like my career ended, it wasn't really voluntary. It was kind of like, hey, I got all these gigs booked. Things are great. That was March 12th. On March 14th, it dried up. And now this looks like it's going on. It's doing shutdown. So at my age, I don't know how long I could or want to even ride it out. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if I want to sit around for 2 years doing backyard shows, hoping this comes back.
Right.
You left under your own, like, when you decide... I always wondered this because you always seem very much at peace with it.
I'm totally at peace with it.
Yeah, and that I need to have that because I think if comedy ended for me right now, I'm not ready for it. I don't know what else to do. I would feel like something's unfinished. Like, what made you decide to kind of? I mean, you still host and do the shows, but going on the road and the headlining stuff, you just stopped.
Yeah, I stopped. I stopped actually. At Chuckles in Mineola, and to help run the club because it was sort of on the edge, and I was friends with the owner, and he was like, you do me a favor and run the club, and went back and forth, and he said, look, I'm going to close if you don't, and I said, all right, I'll do it because I had some friends who worked there and stuff, and it was time because the road gets tedious, man. It's like really, you go on the road for years, you had hotel rooms and it's just gigs that aren't great and. It can get pretty grueling, and I liked having sort of a home base. I could still do the occasional outside show, which I would do once in a while, but I like going to the same place every day, having that stability, and it was kind of relaxing. I'm fine with it.
Was that your full-time job?
Yeah.
Yes. Road comic, road dog, or
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
When I did the road, back before this shutdown, I mean. It's exhausting, and I'm like, am I making money right now? I mean, I
was still at the point I really enjoyed it.
Oh, of course,
no,
but
I wasn't sick of it. There's some gigs where the one-nighters, 4 hours away, but you want to, you're not really working for this booker, so you're like, yeah, I don't mind driving to Rhode Island for $150 and driving home till 4 a.m. Sure.
Yeah, really.
And those suck. Those I don't like. But if I have a room, especially if I'm going with somebody, I get along with the comics.
Yeah.
I've never taken a road trip with somebody. I've been lucky. I've never been trapped in a car with somebody I've disliked. Like, I know some people have taken road trips. I'm like, hey, that's cool. You went to PA? Who'd you go with? And they tell me, I'm like, oh my fuck, how did you not just jerk the wheel off the road?
I can't say the same. I've been trapped in a car with somebody I don't like. Me and Ziegler did an upstate show. That was like the first road gig we like bonded together. That upstate show that was like the Purge that night.
Oh yeah, I took you on that.
Yeah. Ziegler brings me a lot. Ziegler's done me favors. Definitely helped me out a lot in my career.
I get a lot of referral work. If you can just fucking work clean and not be crazy.
But that's one of the keys.
Yeah.
One of the keys is
Will you recommend this? Yeah.
And people don't understand that, because I tell people in the class, you're better off if you have the option working clean. Right. And it's not because I'm a prude. It's not because I think some of the funniest guys in the world are very dirty. I love Attell and I love, Jim Norton.
Yeah, Norton's funny. Jeselnik's funny. There's a lot of them.
Absolutely. But if you want to start out and get a lot of opportunity, the most opportunities you're going to get are if you're clean. Remember our buddy Jerry Harvey, who I love. Yeah. Jerry Harvey, nicest guy in the world. He called the club, and he's looking for a gig. I pick up the phone, and he goes, "This is motherfucking Jerry Harvey, the country boy living in the big city."
I already love
I said, ho. So, do you realize I don't know you? I don't know anything about you. And you just told me that you're filthy.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like, I never even thought of that. And then I went back, and I actually had Jerry take my class, and that was one of the things I tried to stress with him, because he's not really doing comedy anymore. But
no, he's got like businesses.
But
Jerry has 117 children, by the way.
That's absolutely
like I don't even know who. There's pictures on Facebook every day. It's like me and my kids. I'm like, who are these two?
Let's call him in. We'll call in Jerry Harvey.
He's such a good dude.
Jerry Harvey is the best. He's an absolutely wonderful guy. And he told me, I said, look, you're a great guy. He does original material. He is so likable on stage. He's one of those guys you walk out on stage and the audience loves him. And
he's the opposite of what he looks like.
Yeah, he
was a professional heavyweight boxer
and a serious
I know who he is.
heavyweight boxer. Yeah. He could hurt you.
Yeah,
no, he's legit.
But he's like George Foreman. He's that big, lovable teddy bear who can kill you.
Yeah.
But I worked on it with him, and he came back to me and he said, people are coming up to me now going, we loved you before, but we wouldn't put you on our shows because you were so dirty. But now he's getting many more opportunities and stuff like that. It's just common sense. It's good business.
Yeah.
And this is a tough business. So you might as well not slam doors in your own face.
I have a question.
Yes.
There's no way you remember this. No way you remember this.
It's not about Luke Skywalker, I hope.
No. I guess I got to hold on. Let me erase that. When I first started getting hosting work at the clubs, there was one night at the brokerage. I'm hosting, and you do 15. I don't really have it.
Still,
Still, I'm kind of juggling chainsaws. Trueson walks into the showroom and just leans. Like where the wait staff walks by. Mm-hmm. He just leans on the the railing with his chin on his hand, and he just stares at me during my entire 15 minutes. Doesn't blink, doesn't move, doesn't stare. I have a question.
Yeah.
Were you actually watching or fucking with me?
No. I wasn't. No, I absolutely wasn't fucking with you. I was watching it. I was trying to see what you were doing.
Do you remember this?
No way. I don't remember that specific thing.
But he does that a lot.
There have been times where I was screwing with somebody.
Sure.
Ask Downey about the snowball.
The snowball?
Yeah. I made a snowball once, and I just let him see it.
That's so weird.
And I just kept moving around the audience. This was out Medford Governors.
What a weird thing.
Yeah, but for his whole set, he was waiting for me to throw this snowball, which I never threw, but it just got in his head, and it was hilarious.
There were so many times I'm like, is Trueson fucking with me right now?
No, I remember when guys got to that point where they were either getting ready to MC, so they developed 15, or they were getting ready to feature. They're up to that 25. Mm-hmm. You would always watch. I would love when you would let him. He would do it at McGuire's a lot. Somebody was getting ready to feature. He would just, we'd all do in 10, 12 minutes. He'd be like, if say it was McKenna, he'd be like, go air it out.
Yeah, I want to see how much time he had.
Let's see how much time he could do.
McKenna had
to do 20
minutes.
He was supposed to do 20. He did 18. But McKenna's psychotic, so it got to 18:50, and he got off stage. He's like, I had more jokes. I forgot them. We're 18:50.
Yeah, we started calling him the 19-minute man.
Yeah, 19-minute. Oh, it's tortured him for weeks.
But see, what people don't realize is everybody thinks I have supreme power and stuff like that. It's like I had to answer to everybody else. So if I'm putting you in a spot in that situation, I'm saying, you're funny. Mm-hmm. You're professional. You're not going to be crazy. You're going to be good to the staff. There's 100 things involved there, and I got to do the checklist in my head.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, I'll recommend this guy and say this guy should work for us on the weekends. And that's basically what I'm doing. I'm just going through stuff in my head. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to screw with anybody, but I answer to people too.
Yeah.
So
because he kind of pulled the curtain back and showed me how you would choose. Because there are some things about who's going to work really hard, and age makes a difference. There's certain things it's like, well, this person's okay, but they're never going to develop. Mm-hmm. You would sometimes look, but if a guy was 23 years old and doing 30 mics a month, he's got upside, or she's got upside.
You know what else I kind of look for with regard to the classes and stuff like that, and DeVito springs to mind on this, is I look for some sort of background of discipline. Like there are people who were attorneys, martial arts, sports, various things that you had to have some dedication and focus because you need that in comedy. And so, DeVito had a powerlifting background. He had, various.
And he was a writer. He was a
writer. He did a lot of different things. So I'm like, okay, this guy can work. Louderback obviously came in being a professional writer.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you're looking for that too. You're looking for sort of the hard work, because we all know guys who are funny who are just like goofballs, and they don't put much effort in, and they're okay, but they never get much better.
Yeah, because I know a lot of those. That's the newer breed is they're smoking a lot of weed and they're not working hard.
They're smoking that marijuana, the devil's lettuce. What are they? Really? They're smoking weed? Come on, Ziegler.
They're on the pot.
They're smoking that devil's lettuce. Those kids.
They're gonna lose the house.
That's what I lean on in comedy. It sucks. I can't do it now. I'm not the funniest person on the show. I'm not the most talented person on the show, but I'm probably outworking people, and that's how I need that.
Well, this pandemic's been a good testing ground, because when this shit shut down, my initial thing was, I'm not. This might be 2 months. In my head, I'm like, wow, this could last a while. This might be 6 or 7 weeks. I know it was going to be 2 years.
It's insane.
Yeah. So
I never would have dreamed we'd.
No, I thought 6-7 weeks was going to suck. So I went out. I converted my kitchen to like an office. I bought books. I wrote every day. Like, we were doing this. We started this podcast. We were very gung-ho in this podcast.
Look how far we got.
We were going to have video.
The same table.
It was going to be 3D effects on the wall. It was going to be...
When I bought the house, they just gave us this table.
This table came with the house.
There you go.
But I worked pretty hard during this pandemic. You know, look, the mics are brutal. They're a necessary evil, but that's all there is. So it's not like... I used to go to the mics because there was like a carrot on a stick. I'd be like, I'm doing these shitty mics, but Friday night, I'm going to be at Mohegan Sun.
Right.
So let me do this work. But now I'm like, Friday night, I'm going to be back here at Ziggy's Pub.
Yeah.
I lost motivation. I can't.
It kills you.
I can't do it.
Well, I actually, Ziegler specifically talked to me at one point about the open mics, because you said you used to go down and not go on.
When I first started, I went for like
that's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I was scared.
Well, it's also, and I told him, don't go to an open mic thinking you're doing a show or trying to entertain somebody. Go there with a reason. That's batting practice. You know, you don't go to batting practice to try and hit a home run every time. You might try and, hit to right field or bunt or work on something.
Yeah.
Work on something specific, and you don't care what the crazy people in the audience think at an open mic. You're just working on something specific to get better, to work towards when you have a real crowd. That's what you should be doing at an open mic.
I've kind of used that for the past 9 years doing open mics. But during this last
I do that on comedy shows too, though. That's the only problem.
Well, this last 6-7 months, look at how much new material. Like, we had that show, the Backyard Show.
You had a lot of new material.
A lot.
I did all new material. So I did was new material. For my last joke, I closed on a mom joke, but the first 20 plus minutes was all new. And DeVito, I did a Backyard Show with him 2 weeks before he did 20 minutes.
He's
of new
a
material.
machine.
And then he came back again. I go, another 20 minutes?
It's not fair. That's not fair.
DeVito is the hardest working writer of the guys, the local guys.
That is where talent, discipline, and hard work just makes that perfect firework right there.
Which is a good segue for a question because we've talked about this on the podcast, and we have our answer. But can you teach funny?
You can make someone funnier. Can you make them professionally funny? Probably not. Right. And there are people who've taken my class, and some of them, who don't have a lick of funny in them. But if you gave them things to say and just said, say this exactly as it's written here, you'll do okay. And they'll get by the class show, and they'll have a really good experience and stuff like that. Will they be a professional comedian? No.
My consensus is with hard work, you can make them somebody like a serviceable MC.
Yeah.
They can learn the tricks but they're not going to be that funny, but they're going to learn.
But you can take somebody with some raw talent and really correct mistakes and say, you just phrase it. That's a really funny concept. Phrase it this way, and it will get a big laugh. And there's very simple little fixes on some of these things. Wait for the laughs, put the funny thing at the end, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And keep the words to a minimum, keep your setups short. And, you can certainly make a big difference and make people much better than they were.
So essentially, like Mike, think of since you've been doing, who took classes with you, who you see at open mics. There are some people who come around who are new. I'm like, oh, this kid's going to be good. And they never get any better. Yeah. I'm like, I was wrong on that one. And there's other people, I'm like, they don't. And they actually develop. Like, sometimes it's hard to tell. But the one constant is work. The ones who get better all work hard.
Yeah.
And the ones who are kind of on the fence, usually the reason they don't progress is probably they don't work that hard.
Yeah.
But there's been some guys I was just wrong on.
I'm not sure if I know that I'm only doing comedy 5-6 years. I'm not sure if I agree with the you can help someone be funnier.
Not funnier, not funny, but funnier.
at some point, that's why comedy is great. It exposes you right away. If you're funny or not, there's no maybe. Like, at some point on stage, on a podcast, like, you have to have some kind of ability to be funny. At some point, your bluff gets called.
But you're saying at some point you get it, and you get the confidence, and you get the ability, and you get the nuance of what you're doing. There are people, and one of my absolute favorites, brilliant comic, one of my favorite comics in the world, Jim Gaffigan. When he started out, he took some spankings, because he started out at some of the clubs that I was doing there, but because he was doing something completely original, and he was, not exactly the same as everybody else, which is key.
Did Gaffigan start with that breaking the fourth wall thing, the side talking?
No, he started but he did start with some little weird asides. He used to do a little, just little sort of noise things, and then it sort of gravitated to that. Jessica Kirson also, early on, doing something completely original before she became the powerhouse that she is now. Would occasionally have a little problem with the audience, but you punch through that, and you really hone what you're doing, and you get the confidence, and then it just takes off from there. And those are the people that really shoot to the moon, the people who are completely original. Yeah. And they often have a little bit more trouble up front, because you can go up your first 10 times and do just hacky nonsense and be like, and do well, but where are you going with that? That's the sort of the dead end street. It's the easy road with the dead end street. But if you take the chance and take some lumps early with something completely original, then you have a shot to really, shoot to the moon.
I wonder a comic like that, a Gaffigan, a Kirsten, that's original,
right.
they might have failed their first 10 years or something like that. I don't know. That might be a bad example, but I wonder how many comics are like that just quit because they just never got the laughs.
I'm sure a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. It's demoralizing. You just don't, who wants to do that? Who wants to not be doing well 9 years in still?
Yeah.
It's easy to quit because you just got to keep, you got to keep just working. Mm-hmm. It's really like sadistic.
Well, there's also
why am I here?
There's also the allure of peer respect.
Yeah,
because comics will recognize somebody original and funny and doing something really cool, generally before the audience, before the industry, before anybody, and you start to hear some encouraging words from your peers, which kind of keeps you going.
And that means more to me. Look, obviously, I want to do really well with an audience, and it feels good.
Yeah.
But when good comics watch me give me, that means way more.
It's not even close.
Like, I've had really good sets in front of audiences, and I just get off stage. I'm like, oh, what a bunch of dummies they are. Like, I have contempt for the audience. Like, I'm like, I don't care that they laughed at me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. But when somebody,
you should want to do a professional job, but you shouldn't like live and die with the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But when certain comics watch my set and give me, that means a lot to me. Like, that carries weight for me. Not all comics. But there's
maybe 1% of comics.
Some guys that
actually care that when they're in the room, I'm like, okay, I gotta reel it in, do well. But
this meant so much when I started. We were talking about this. The stage time was it's at a premium. It's precious. It's so hard to get like real stage time. Those governor spots.
Oh
yeah, with audiences on Thursdays and Sundays.
Oh, yeah. Those were like
ridiculous.
I used to wait a week for those spots. I was so they meant like those were like it. And then so every month the way it works. For our non-comedy people, it was John, you send him your avails at the beginning of the month. He sends out an email, who's available these days, and you write back, and then he sends you back, please do, with a couple of dates.
I lost years of my life.
Some people get a couple of dates because they're new, and some people get a lot of dates. Waiting for those, it was worse than waiting for an AIDS test result. I used to go to the dino with D. Domenico, and like we'd send them back 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then we'd start our rationalizing.
Yeah, I guess,
it was a good run. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I guess it's, and then we'd be sitting there and Anthony would be like, oh, I just got my avails back. I got 7. And I'm like,
you hate Anthony now?
And I'd be like, good for you, man. I'm happy for you. You deserve it. Once Anthony was like, he got like 8 and I hadn't gotten anything yet. And he's like, I'll give you 4 of mine. I go, I don't think it works that way. I don't think you can give me your avails.
I'm like giving you half a sandwich for lunch.
Well, first of all, I'm getting 60 of those emails that I have to respond to.
Yeah.
And I got to work it out on the board. Plus, again, as you guys know, there was a time when there was sort of the whims of the higher ups was sort of, like this week somebody didn't like somebody because they didn't give them a ride home or something. So that's happened in the past.
This is it meant so much.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of little nuance to giving out the spots.
So when you start, you just don't know how this.
I got a funny story.
You just don't know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get it.
Yeah.
Like I still love that Anthony story when he called the club. So D Domenico once, and I think it was him. He didn't tell you for like 4 years it was him.
I knew it was him.
Oh, you knew it was him with the dice thing?
Yes.
So Anthony Di Domenico has been on the podcast. He's a fan of dice. He's doing comedy 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And his friend's in a band that goes, well, sometimes I'm in a band. If I call the venue and I say I can bring people. So Anthony called the club and spoke to Trueson. He wanted to open for dice. And he said all he heard, like you put the phone down and laughed for like a minute.
I was laughing. It was funny.
That's way funner than anything Anthony's ever done. Asking to open for Andrew Dice Clay.
Like 3 months in the comedy.
Because he could bring people.
Because he could bring people like Dice needs him.
It's the greatest. But I don't think he fessed up to it for like 3 years.
I thought it was kind of like, it was sort of sweet and naive.
Oh, it was nice, yeah.
And it was funny, and I was laughing. But I explained it to him. I said, "Look, that's not really how it's done, man."
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny.
I got a story. This was, Tui and I took the class together. Once we found out that you were into hockey,
Yes,
I was going to go to the class wearing a hockey jersey, and once we started getting like guest spots, me and Tui were like, maybe we should take skating lessons.
Him and Tui were going to sign up for skating lessons.
Just to get like 7 minutes at McGuire's, just sign up for skating lessons.
that's hilarious.
Thing ever.
Well, Ziegler was a rink guard, and I still haven't skated with him.
Yeah, it's been many
Rink
years.
guard?
He was a rink guard.
I was a rink guard when I was like
those guys
17.
who skate around and
I
yell
can't
at
picture
people.
him on skates.
I
That's
can
not a good
skate.
look. No, you can't.
Yeah, I can. If you put a hockey stick in my hand, I'd impale myself on it. I wouldn't know what to do
You
with
know
it.
how to ice skate.
I was a really
on
good
ice
skater.
with skates.
Oh, no, I had hockey skates, CCM, tuck blades. I was good.
Ziegler's been threatening to organize the governor's ice skating party for the last 3 years.
Have you seen him skate?
No, nobody's seen me
No,
skate.
that's why I want to see him skate.
Total bullshit.
I haven't skated since the late 80s.
He also had a 6-figure job before comedy.
I did.
Full of lies.
I think I lived this lifestyle on $1.80 a month.
Back to the avails thing. These were actual conversations between, me, Tui, Grillo, like, all right, maybe like I only got 3 spots. I think I bumped into the wait staff on a Thursday, so maybe like that got through. Because one of my comedy rules that you taught me, don't piss off the wait staff. So I'm like, fuck, I bumped into the wait staff.
You are paranoid.
What
did you do once when you called me?
Oh,
and I'm like, I already knew about it.
Oh,
you know how comedy works.
Yeah.
Somebody thought that I said something I didn't. And I got an email and it was like, hey, don't do this. And I just said, okay, sorry, will never happen
And
again.
it wasn't even you.
It wasn't even me. I was like,
I
just apologized immediately. I said, oh, okay.
But you had called me, and what did I say?
I called you and you were like, hello, former governor's employee. Which last thing I wanted to hear was fucking. And then you told me what happened. And I was like, oh, wait a second.
It wasn't you.
I apologized for something I never did.
No, you never did.
Anyway.
That's very funny. Those are crazy. Those are such
stressful.
It was a lot of stress.
But
I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't go through that.
My first 3 years of comedy where I have to do this for John Trueson. I have to do this open mic in the city for John Trueson. I have to do 3 open mics in the city. So next time John Trueson sees me, I got better. I swear to God.
John, did you know you have this much influence over?
I'm not exaggerating at all.
First of all,
you're like Jim Jones. We would have probably drank and poisoned Kool-Aid if we had to. It was we were really.
I'm not exaggerating at all.
You should want to get better for yourself, not for me.
Right.
Yeah,
I guess I just need.
Your approval did mean so. Dawn always laughs at this story. She cracks up at this. Is you don't hand out compliments very easily. You just go. Make a face and go, all right, like, whatever you did. Not good, not bad. And you're like, this is part of the game. Like, if you bomb, whatever, you're going to bomb a lot more. So like, you used to tell me, next first 1,000 shows, don't worry about anything. This isn't changing your life right now.
Right.
Like, you're so new. But I did a set on a Thursday, and I passed you in the hallway in Governors, and you got about 10 feet past me and went, good set, Ziegler. And I'm like, I felt like my dad came to my first ball game.
Yeah, and he hit a home run. You got hit by a pitch.
I remember calling Dawn. I'm like, Trueson said I had a good set. Yeah. Oh, it's so funny.
100%
I look
true.
back now. I'm like, how sad was I?
That is kind of sad.
It was very sad. But it meant it's like you know what I mean. I look for that in newer comics. I'm like, do you care about this as much as I did?
when we did the comedy
This
contest.
was everything to me.
Comedy contest, another brutal, just cringeworthy stuff going on there.
Those are horrifying. First of all, if you're going to do a comedy contest, do it for the experience. To work under a little bit of pressure. Do a good performance, stuff like that. But don't worry about judging, because judging is nonsense. Judging of comedy is ridiculous.
Unless you're the funniest comic on the East Coast.
That's true. But I mean, even when we used to do the contest, I would do the little pep talk before the show and tell people,
doesn't mean
what
anything.
you do tonight doesn't mean anything. And it doesn't. It's just,
Let me hear what you did the next day, because he bombed at the laugh off.
I will tell that story. Thank you, by the way. He bombed at the laugh off.
I don't remember it. You keep telling me how bad you bombed.
It was horrible. That pep talk now, looking back on it, yeah, that's the perfect pep talk. But when you're hearing it, when it's me, Grillo, and Tui, and the first thing you say to us is, you go to, I think it was Ziegler, you go, Ziegler, they all got haircuts for this. They think it matters. And then I just go, wait a second.
Grillo bought a white sport jacket.
I just spent
$40,000. I like Grillo's white sport jacket.
I did, like, remember we kept wearing it?
Everybody wore it. Everybody went
I'm like, wait a second. I just spent $40,000 on open mics. Yeah, I hope this matters. My first year of the Long Island Laugh Off, I've told this story where I brought, my wife, girlfriend at the time, she brought a table of friends. And if you get there first, you get to pick your spot.
Right.
I got there first. And this was how good I thought I was at comedy. I got there first, and you said, where would you like to go? And I said, first.
Okay.
And you went, oh, boy. I thought, this was how green I was. I thought, I can't even say it.
Say it. Spit it out.
I thought I was going to be so good.
Like the show's over after
no one's going to be able to follow me. And, man, I bombed so bad. Okay. I didn't advance in the second round. I got bumped out, right? And 5 people advanced. Wasn't one of them. My wife brought, a table of friends. We don't talk to them anymore.
And how did it affect your career?
It didn't.
But what happened the next? There's something the next day. I've been waiting to hear.
This was also when I was taking the governor's comedy class. So, my DVD was ready for pickup.
Okay.
So, I lose on a Thursday in the contest.
Right.
I emailed you the next day, Friday, and I said, hey, can I come by Governor's to pick up my DVD? And you were like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, I get, like, you were going to give it to me anyway, but like, why? I went to Governor's, and in my mind, I was thinking, I bet that I advanced, and there was a mix-up. And when I get to Governor's, he'll go, oh, hey, Mike, by the way, you made it to round 2. There was a mix-up last night and when I picked up his DVD, I made sure, like, I opened the door slowly. I wanted to be there as long as possible for him to see me.
Wow, your level.
For him to see me.
I never knew you had that level of delusion.
For him to see me to go, oh, I have to tell Calcagno about the mix-up last night.
Well, I was talking to Ziegler before the podcast, and we looked over the judging, and you made it to the second round.
Jamie, you hear that? Tell all your friends I advanced.
It's been eating away at me for 5 years.
It was a clerical error.
When I got the DVD, this is the best part. I never even saw Trueson. My whole plan was, like, the first 2 seconds I walk in and...
Was Carol there?
Carol was there. The DVD is just sitting here.
Here's your DVD.
And I was like...
Did Carol vote for you?
I was like, okay, thank you so much. And, like, as I'm walking out, I'm, like, looking to see, like, is Trueson here? Like, is Trueson here? All I wanted him to say was, oh, Calcagno, come here. I got to talk to you about last night.
Did Carol go, I heard you really bit it last night.
And the conversation never happened. Isn't that sad? Yeah. Think about how sad that is.
Could have been a wild card. It could have been a wild card. Could have brought you back.
There you go.
Because I remember Tui got a hosting weekend before you.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I lobbied so hard for you.
Because you were sad?
Yeah, because Tui got one, and I'm like, oh, if they like producing shows together, that's going to be...
I do get why people go mentally ill in this business.
Yeah, I was pretty grounded, and I just kind of wanted to get better, and I didn't worry about a lot of that external shit. Mm-hmm. I think because I was also old.
Now I don't, because I realized, you have to just work hard and it's a long game.
Yeah, you started when you were young, which is beneficial, but it's also...
You're stupid.
Yeah, you're a little bit more emotional about things, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and now I did achieve more than I ever thought I was ever going to do, but now once you get a taste, though, you want more. Mm-hmm. I'm drunk with power. I want more.
I remember Ziegler when he first started out, first year probably that he was doing comedy, he never looked up.
I had such horrible stage
He
fright.
never looked up. He
I was
was just
petrified.
always looking at the floor of the stage for his whole set. I think I sent you an email that
You
said,
did.
"Dear Ziegler, right now I know you are looking at the floor as you were reading."
Yeah, you did. He's making fun of me. Look, he's like, you asked me to do a spot, and you were like, come do a spot this week and stop looking down. I know you're looking down even right now.
I would look over the audience.
That's what you
Gage
should
taught
do.
me. Believe it or not, Gage taught me
Yes,
that.
Gage says, "Look at those lights
Over
in
the
back."
audience.
Yep.
Yeah. Gage stares to the back of the room.
If I were to make eye contact with an audience member, I would pass out. But this is when your first couple of years, it's the most nerve wracking thing you can do.
It's funny now because I'm friends with the guys who are already featuring and headlining when I started. Guys like Crumps and Roach and Monty and those guys, they were all at the club, Downey. So I remember my first Thursday when I had a bad set. And I came off stage and they were just fucking brutal on me, those guys, in the nicest way. And now I look back and I was like, I like, Gage had his headset on. So you don't think he hears anything. He takes his headset off. He's just like, hey, how did that feel? I bombed. And I closed with a joke about an ugly vagina. That was my punchline. And Crump, so I'd never even met before. He's already, I think he didn't even have one kid yet, and he was already angry. And Crump looks at me, he goes, don't you work in a gym? I go, yeah. He goes, you don't have any jokes about treadmills?
Treadmill material.
So you went out, John went out, and he took out the guitar in the middle of the show. So I go, does he usually play the guitar in the middle of the show? Down he goes, he's doing spackling, sir.
Never good.
I'm like, so
To this day, I've never seen him do it.
he had
I
to go.
used to-
He had to get the crowd back.
That was Downey and I discussed that at some point. If a comic went up and did some damage to the show, I used to say to Downey, "Give me the guitar. I'm going to go do some spackling."
Oh, it's the funniest word. And I thought I would. Then I didn't get my avails for a week, and I'm like, I'm done.
You done?
Nothing. That meant nothing.
No,
So funny.
everybody has a bad set. It happens. You learn from that. You know.
You know what's crazy? I used to when my bad set, I would panic, cotton mouth, can't move. Now, like a bad set, I kind of lean into it.
It's funny.
I'm like, this might be fun.
Yeah. If you do well 99% of the time, and just once in a while you run into a terrible audience, it's sort of entertaining because you're just doing your thing, wondering what they're thinking, and just having fun with it.
Like you saw me do that set. I did a set, and we went to Connecticut together, 2 different venues down the road. So he came to pick me up after his set, and I was getting towards the end. I was doing like a 45-minute set. I was getting toward the end, and I had a very good set. So I did a new joke that we discussed. That he goes, I don't think you're gonna get a good. It was about Louderback and his chewing, but I mentioned him having cerebral palsy. He's like, I don't think you can do that joke, but I'm having a good set. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I was feeling good. Yep. Man, how quick did that turn?
Think about
It went from like applause breaks to like, oh, you're a bad man.
Think about how difficult that is. You're how many years in? 13? 12?
12.
And you still don't know what to do on stage.
But it was great that it's a good feeling
Yeah.
that you don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
It wouldn't rattle me. I just kind of leaned into it. I smiled. I tried to still. You got to admit, I was trying. It wasn't working, but
You
I tried.
smiling made it worse, actually.
I tried
Anytime
to-
you smile, he looks around. He's like, it's a weird
I tried
thing.
to power through it.
Well, it was actually a thing. I used to do this with Sullivan. I did it with Gage a bunch of times. Gage still does it just to mess himself up. But you go out on stage and open with something that is hideously offensive, that is going to turn the audience against you, and then try and dig out of the hole. And it's a good exercise.
You know who's
Dom
you know who's
Irera.
very good at that?
Who's that? Rooney?
Rooney.
Yeah.
Rooney will go, "What's up, old people?" And then talk about how old they are, how ugly they are, and dig out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Dom Irera came out once and did a bit about standards on women.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, look at his wildebeest in the front. And he's just talking about, I banged this one. He's just trashing this front table.
Yeah.
And bombing, and then he just digs himself out.
Yep.
But it's clearly on purpose.
It's different, though. Like, he's bigger than the room he's performing in, right? Dom Irera.
It was on a Thursday.
Not on a
though.
Thursday. I don't think anybody knew
just
who he
came in
was.
on a Thursday. I'm not sure anybody even
okay.
knew him.
Because if I start doing that on a Thursday, like, I'm done.
Yeah,
Dom has a following.
You have to have a
He's
certain
great.
standing to get away.
Yeah, you have to have you have to be grandfathered in, I guess.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have like Kevin James fame. Like the regular people don't know Dom. A lot of people don't know Dom.
Mm-hmm.
He's really funny. But that bit is like he digs a deepest hole. Mm-hmm. Which is comics. We love it.
What'd you think of the backyard show? What do you think of like all this like a backyard comedy stuff going on? What do you think?
I think it's great because you got to work, and I thought that was actually a very well done show.
That was a good show.
It was laid out
was a good
well.
show.
Everything about it was good. The gunshots coming from the high school was interesting during the course of the show.
Well, their backyard is also a very conducive yard for comedy.
Yeah.
It's like they had chairs out and...
Yeah. I was sitting there going, maybe I should do one of my class shows here because I still haven't done the class show for my January classes.
Wow.
The January class is still going on theoretically.
Wow.
That's crazy.
It's because it's the weird laws. You can't teach a class.
Isn't that strange?
You can't put 8 people in a 300-seater. He's not allowed to teach his comedy.
Doesn't make sense.
I mean, I can understand, you're serving alcohol, you want to do a show, blah, 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 blah. I can't put 8 people for a class in a room that seats 270 people.
Very strange.
You can do some serious social distancing with 8 people in a 270-seat room.
Stupid.
But yeah, it's just, it's very arbitrary what they're doing right now.
And then I go, we do the open mic over by Popeyes. There's 80 people under a tent. It's like, you can eat shrimp night. I'm like, that's okay?
What do you think what do you think comedy's going to be? Seriously, like, I mean, if we keep, getting upticks, and what do you think it's going to?
I think miracles are going to happen after the election. And I'm serious because I am somewhat cynical. But right now, and you'll hear they sort of tipped their hand early on this. They were like Donald Trump is the first president to come out with a negative job growth or something like that. And in order to use that as a talking point, they don't want the economy to come out before election day.
Got it.
So they can keep saying that because every time they ease up on something, the unemployment rate goes down 2 points. And the last thing they want is the unemployment rate doing well. So they're picking people who they don't think are particularly important, like comics and comedy club employees, and they're just keeping them unemployed.
That's one of the reasons I worry is you spend so many years nurturing relationships in clubs. It takes years, like at Treehouse or at Wisecrackers or the clubs that I have in.
Right.
I've built. If those clubs close and there's a turnover in management, it's like back of the line again. I can't restart.
Yeah, that's what I'm scared about.
Yeah, but I found over the course of time, sometimes, you have a club you've worked a long time, and all of a sudden they switch management, they switch whatever, and now you're out or you're not as favored as you used to be. But at the same point, somebody you're friends with then gets an in at this different club, and it sort of ends up balancing out.
That's what I was,
and the key to everything is just be nice and courteous to everyone. Don't burn bridges. Be nice to the other comics, respectful to the other comics, respectful to the employees.
Don't block the waitstaff.
Don't block the waitstaff. That's
huge. And shut up.
Yeah.
And shut up. Exactly.
That's the best advice I ever got.
When you started, I wanted to ask this earlier. It's a different time from when you started. Like I always say, it was one of the questions we got. If I had to start comedy in a different, what time would I pick? For me, I would have loved to have done comedy in the 80s. Because that's kind of what I grew up on.
Right.
Like when you started, there was a lot of clubs on Long Island.
No, there weren't.
No?
When I started, there was one.
When did that boom? What did you start?
Late 70s. I started right before that. The only
so the boom was the 80s?
Late 70s. Very late 70s. I started a place called the White House Inn.
Richard M.
Dixon's White House Inn.
Was Richard M. Dixon?
Dixon. Right. And that was his thing, was he was a Richard M. Nixon look-alike, who didn't really look like that much like him. John Weiss used to say, he looks more like Darren McGavin. But
imagine that your whole career you don't look like the guy. Like that's your whole basis.
But I mean, in those days, like the early days, Jackie the Joke Man, Rob Bartlett, Bob Nelson, Bobby Collins was there, Rosie O'Donnell, Eddie Murphy was obviously the biggest guy to come out of there.
Because that's what I was wondering. Did you have kind of mentors or role models, or was it not like that back then?
It was. There were people who you were kind of on the same level, but not quite. And then a little bit later, when I was in the comedy team, I think Jackie Martling helped us a lot. Jackie the Joke Man from Howard Stern.
Well, he was very prominent in booking Long Island, right?
Yeah, he was very big on Long Island. He liked us, and he was a great guy. And he took us like on a road gig to Florida for 2 weeks. To the comic strip in Florida to open for him, and we learned a lot from him. I mean, he had a really good work ethic and just a hardworking guy, funny guy, and gave everything to every show. And he was a good guy, and I really I appreciate everything that he did for us when we were starting out.
I mean, I was lucky. I had a lot of good comics who were really good to me. Gave me work. Cola was always very nice to me. Joey Cola.
Cola's nice to everyone.
Yeah,
Cola's just a great guy.
Well,
gave me a ton of work.
That's also like what motivated me to get better at this is like, who has a better opportunity than a guy like me? I'm a drive away from New York City, where I can get on stage 4 times a night. and then I have real shows on Thursday, Sundays. Why? Like, I should be getting better at this, right? Like the opportunities.
There's stage time here if you want it.
That's what I mean. So I'm grateful. I was grateful for everything.
Govan is having 3 clubs.
It's amazing.
Not a lot of people who.
It's amazing.
I don't think there's a lot of people who have that.
Yeah, and it's different. Like you can do a bunch of open mics for like 10, 12 people, most of whom are comics, and get limited results from that. But if you're doing shows for 150, 200 people,
so different,
real people, that can really move you along quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm not, like, for me, timing's really important to me. Pausing and timing, it's just kind of my stuff. Like when I'm at those open mics,
called bombing.
Yeah, I still have to do that though.
Yeah.
Which is, there's 10 people. I don't want to get these horrible, because I see bar comics sometimes, and you can just tell they're bar comics.
Right.
They're just they don't stop to constantly like combat rooms.
You know what helped me? That goes back to Trueson's class. He has you stand on stage and he goes, all right, and there's silence. That's the worst thing that can happen to you on stage. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
I'll be all right. Actually, silence is way more important now than I ever realized in my act.
Yeah.
I will get a laugh just being quiet. It's like, oh, this is fantastic.
100%. I've done experiments with this kind of thing, like team and by myself. It's like you can come out on stage and just not say a word and just stare at the audience. And after a little bit of time, they will start laughing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting psychological sort of experiment that you can do.
Yeah, I remember you used to sit in the green room for newer comics. You weren't listening to their material. This, like, do they ever?
Yeah, I was listening.
Listen if there was ever a pause.
Yeah, I was listening for pauses. I didn't care what they were saying.
That's really.
But you have to have pauses in your act to
I missed that. That 10 years. It was like a 10-year window. That was really the best 10 years of my life. Like my governor's time for 10 years.
No, man, it's
like I met all my comedy friends through there. And it's somewhat sad because some people have they're not really working that much. And even before this, they were kind of starting to run out of steam. Mm-hmm. None of us, you're like, I think 1 or 2 really blew up out of the crew, but really none of us.
No.
Really,
they're all doing podcasts.
Working.
Everyone's doing a podcast out of the living room.
I wish there was like a Bill Burr or Louis you came out of my
Well, you know who's gigantic now is Tim Dillon.
Oh, Tim's huge.
Tim Dillon is blowing away. Good for him.
Yeah, no, he's
great guy.
He's crushing it.
This is how embedded John Trueson was in my head. At my wedding,
mm-hmm.
I gave Jamie John Trueson advice, my wife. At my wedding. You were there.
Well, I was industry. You had to invite me.
In my wife's vows, she was murdering. She was crushing. Right. And I said, Jamie, wait for your laughs.
He said it out loud during his vows. I was laughing so hard.
I said, Jamie, wait, because you would kill him. I'm like, Jamie, wait for your laughs. You're doing well right now. All right. Want to wrap up, I guess?
Sure.
I have a pretty good wrap-up question.
Okay. Go ahead. Do it.
Who's funnier, me or Ziegler? I know the answer.
No. Now, here's the thing.
You're a better physical comic.
It is complete. It's apples and oranges. How long have you been doing it?
Right. 6 years.
How long have you been doing it?
12.
At 6 years, you guys may have been equivalent. You can't compare people who've been doing it, completely disparate amount of time because, as I said, it takes time. You will be way better in 6 years if you keep working.
I am light years ahead at 12 years than I was at 6 years.
Yeah.
I have a set that I used to put on my website, which is about 4 years old, and I cringe to watch it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 8 years in.
That's every month. I'm like, I can't believe I did that joke, or like I knew nothing about. Last month I knew nothing about comedy. Nothing. And then a month.
That's exactly how it should be.
A month from now, I knew nothing again. Like
you should be looking at tapes from just like a few months ago and going, "What was I thinking?"
Yeah,
because that means you're getting better and you're getting better grasp.
For me, it's the saddest part of this kind of shutdown. If this takes is at 12 years in, I was starting to feel like I was getting some footing, but I was really curious where I can go in the next 5 years. I don't mean success, just how much better I can get in 5 years.
I'm going to cut this, and when I ask who's funnier, me or Ziegler, I'm just going to have Trueson just go Calcagno, and then it's going to end.
All right. Hey, I'll give it to you to cut in. You ready? Why, you are, Mike. There you go.
This concludes another episode of the Dying is Easy podcast. We really appreciate you having John Trueson come in. The Yoda of comedy, as we call him on the show. Follow us on everything: Instagram, iTunes.
This is a picture of professionalism right
Spotify, here. Spotify, they know. Anything you want to say? Thank you to John or.
I was trying to think of some more Star Wars characters. It says the C-3PO, the R2-D2. I don't know any.
You're leaning on the Star Wars joke again? You got nothing else? You can't think of anything else?
Well, still seem to be getting something out of it. So
email us at thedyingiseasypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, guys.